All right, you should be live.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Chaska Planning Commission meeting, Wednesday, December 9th, 2020 at 7 p.m. I'd like to read a short statement before we start. You guys have heard this before, but in case anybody new is on the line, welcome everyone. As you can tell, this meeting looks a little different. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're holding our meeting via video teleconference. Because the City Council has declared a local emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, state statutes allow us to hold our meetings remotely. Even though we aren't meeting in person, we want to make sure the public can participate. If you've joined the Zoom meeting, you will notice that you are muted. We have a moderator on the call who will unmute those who wish to speak during the public comment portions of the meeting. Public comments will be reserved for visitor presentations, public hearings, or special circumstances determined by the commission. Once we reach those parts of the agenda, I will ask if there are any public comments. If you wish to speak and have joined the meeting by computer or tablet, please click on participants on the bottom of your screen and then select the raise hand icon. If you wish to speak and have joined the meeting by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. Once your hand is raised, the moderator will announce your name or phone number and unmute your line. Please remember that public comment is provided at the discretion of the commission and is meant as productive discourse on topics related to the city of Chaska. Speakers shall refrain from comment or behavior that is deemed disorderly, derogatory, obscene, indecent, or off topic. Any person engaging in such speech or action may be muted or removed from the meeting. Those of you watching online or on Comcast Channel 15, please be aware of the following. Some of our commissioners, in fact, tonight, all of our commissioners, city staff, and presenters are participating in the meeting remotely. There is a delay between a live meeting and broadcast. All commission actions will be taken by roll call vote. We're working hard to make sure that you can be heard as we protect everyone's health and safety. Thank you for your patience as we work through this unprecedented situation. All right, now that the housekeeping is done, we can proceed. Liz, would you do a roll call, please?
Yep. Commissioner Bovee, Commissioner Brass,
Here.
Commissioner Cross, Commissioner Lacey,
Here.
Commissioner Seiler,
Here.
Commissioner Urbanski,
Here.
Commissioner Olson,
Here.
Commissioner Riley,
Here.
and Chairperson Dahlke.
Also here. All right, next is to adopt tonight's agenda. Does everybody have the agenda in front of them? Have a chance to review? If so, I'll take a motion to adopt.
So moved.
I'll second.
By Commissioner Urbanski
I'll second.
and second by Seiler. All those, oh, I'm sorry, Liz, roll call, please.
Yep. Brass,
Aye.
Lacey,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dahlke.
Aye. Next on the agenda is voter presentation. Is there anyone on the line that has anything they would like to discuss that is not on the agenda for tonight?
Commissioner Dahlke, I don't see anyone on the meeting with their hand raised, so I think you're good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the October 14th Planning Commission meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review?
Yes.
All right, I did as well. I'll entertain a motion to adopt last month's or the October 14th minutes.
I'll make
So
a
moved.
motion to adopt the October 14th Planning Commission minutes.
Motion by Seiler, second by Commissioner
I'll second.
Lacey. All right, Liz, roll, please.
Commissioner Brass,
So moved to adopt the October 14th.
Aye.
Lacy,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dalkey.
Aye. All right, there is nothing on the consent items for tonight. So we will move to our action items, 7B. This is a public hearing to approve the preliminary plat and rezoning of Harvest West Third, Harvest West North Traditions Development PC number 2020-22. There is nothing on the consent items for tonight. So we will move to.
Have it here. There we go. Thank you, Chairperson Dalkey. I'm going to share my screen here. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, like Chairperson Dalkey mentioned, we are looking at a preliminary plat and rezoning request tonight for the Harvest West Third, which was formerly known as Harvest West North when we went through concept plan approval, but they're the same development project. This is an aerial kind of capturing the area that we're looking at tonight in red. So the south portion west of Savannah Way and north of County Road 44 was already platted for its full extent in the previous years. So now the developer who owns pretty much all of this property on the west side of Savannah Way is wishing to extend and kind of provide the end cap to the Harvest West development. So what you see in red is what we're approving tonight. So in terms of a background in the history of kind of the Harvest West development, the concept plan for the south side, or what we refer to as Harvest West, was approved back in March of 2018. So the area kind of delineated in blue below here had about 125 lots, single family lots platted down there. And then the final plats occurred in both 2019 and 2020 of this year to kind of complete and start the construction of that first portion of the development. And then we looked at the concept plan for the north side here in red back in July of this year. So they're coming in for the second step in the process, which is for preliminary plat and rezoning of this remaining portion. So the preliminary plat request is specifically for 119 lots, which is consistent with what the concept plan laid out back in July. Within that, 84 of those will be kind of your traditional single family lots. And then 35 of those will be those detached villa product, which is still a detached single family housing product, but it's kind of what you would understand it to be as a detached townhome. And then I'll show it in exhibit a little bit later, just kind of showing the layout of those different products. And then secondly, they are asking for a rezoning request tonight from the open zoning district to a PRD 77, which is a planned residential district. Looking at kind of the existing conditions out there. So the area highlighted in purple on this exhibit roughly encompasses 48 acres of total acreage. As you see it today, it was mostly used for farmland or agricultural purposes. There were some natural pasture areas as well, kind of in between that. They also have delineated 3 wetlands on the site on the 48 acres that we're looking at tonight. There's 2 on the west side here, and then there's a large one kind of on the northeasterly portion of the property. So The larger ones are generally speaking going to be non-impacted by the development. The smaller one here will be fully impacted with what the development is laying out. In terms of street frontage, so this northern area has frontage both on the east and west side. So on the east side, it abuts the Collector Road Savannah Way, which will be the prime access into this neighborhood. And then on the west side, we have Highway 212 abutting that western edge. And as a result of that, there is a significant berm, approximately 20 feet in height along this edge to help screen and provide noise mitigation from that highway. In the southern portion, we did delineate a 12-acre parcel of land for a public park. So as a part of that, when we looked at the concept, we saw an opportunity to show kind of a connection for a conservation corridor to connect into that 12-acre park to preserve some of these significant oak trees that are in the center of the site. So you'll see that reflected in their preliminary plat here. Before I get to kind of the overall site layout, just a couple things that were brought up during the concept plan and kind of how they've addressed it in this preliminary. One of them was the relationship between the westerly cul-de-sac and two significant trees on the edge of the lots of that cul-de-sac. So there is a 42-inch oak as well as a 35-inch oak, basically on the perimeter of those lots. We wanted those to be looked at a little bit further in terms of their sustainability through the development and as things start with construction and so forth. So they did engage an arborist to evaluate those trees, and they did provide a tree assessment on those, as well as a couple others that are kind of along the perimeter to show that they will be able to be sustained throughout construction and the activity around it. So as a part of that, they will have certain protection measures put in place, such as silt fencing around the drip line, which essentially is kind of that critical area of the tree that has to be protected in order for it to kind of withstand some of these major impacts. So they do plan to do that as a part of this development for those significant trees on the perimeter here. And then the other item brought up in the concept plan was 4 lots along kind of the northeasterly edge abutting the Collector Road and where that major wetland is. With any wetland, there's a buffer requirement around the edge of them. And there were 4 lots that were basically kind of pinned up against that buffer area, which showed some concern with the relationship of building pads to these buffer areas, and being able to fit homes on those lots seemed questionable. So we asked the developer to take a look at that a little bit further. They did, as a part of this preliminary layout, remove these 4 lots from this area, but they had been or were absorbed into other parts of the development. So it was relocated out of this kind of critical area, but absorbed back into the development in less critical areas. And then here's the proposed layout for the project, and it's colorized just so you can, I wanted to give a sense of kind of the makeup of these different housing products or lots that they're proposing out there. So when we look at the 119 lots proposed, the blue side, which is the westerly cul-de-sac, would consist of those cottage lots, which would have that detached villa product. So you'll have both front-loaded and side-loaded garage options along this stretch, which is a natural progression to the south, which was also the same product. So they'll continue that through on this westerly cul-de-sac side. And then the other type of product is their heritage lot product, which is their traditional product that they've introduced on the east side in the Club West neighborhood. So this is kind of their traditional single family, normal lot size type development. So that'll be in this kind of inner cul-de-sac off of Timber Arch Drive, which will be a continuation from the south here and then end in a cul-de-sac. So basically what's shown in green will be that heritage lot size. And then the new part about this development is they are introducing kind of a different product line as a part of it, shown in orange. These will be 49 manor lots, what they'll call them. And they'll average out at 50-foot wide lots, and they'll be an extension off of Red Cedar Drive, and then end in a cul-de-sac here. So these will be the ones kind of abutting Savannah Way. So they'll be the same kind of detached single family look. They'll just be a little bit smaller scale, which will cater to a different type of buyer out there wishing to downsize a little bit more in these homes. And then also, so we currently have an access into the Harvest West development on the south side of this development area off of Vista View Drive. So that provided a primary access into this development area. And then as a part of this northern side, they're proposing a secondary access off of the Collector Road, which would tie in with Farm Hill Boulevard. So each of these entrances line up with the development just to the east. So this again will provide an additional access, kind of that grand entrance layout that you see out in the Club West neighborhood today. That'll be continued here, which would also tie into an additional park opening for the city park. So that's a new proposal as a part of this development plan, is to kind of have that continuous connection and visual as you're entering the development. And that's consistent on the south side as well. One of the big things due to the layout of this development is the extension of this conservation corridor area. Again, the main reasoning for this is because of significant oak trees that exist kind of in this stretch of the area. So the purpose was to really preserve that area and have it be an amenity to the development itself. So it does connect in with the city park to the south here, and it'll provide a nice natural extension to the north there. So because of this added piece into the development, we did note kind of the importance in providing some equitable openings into both the park space, but also this conservation area. One of the changes from the concept plan was before they did have an opening kind of on the north side of the northeasterly cul-de-sac here to kind of provide access into this area. But with kind of the details getting run through and the topography out here, they do need to put in a retaining wall, which essentially kind of blocks off this to being an opening to the conservation area. So one of the comments that we have is, you know, where is there another opportunity for an opening on this easterly cul-de-sac side? I think the preference from a staff standpoint would be on the northern side, just to give kind of this area an opening into the conservation area, which could then loop back into the westerly cul-de-sacs opening. There's definitely an opportunity to really amenitize that and pave it for the residents out here to have kind of that full looping system instead of kind of a break there and figuring out where to go to next. So the preference would be on the north side here, just given kind of the extension of this cul-de-sac and not having an opening into the park, being that the closest one would be here. So even if one were to happen here, that would still provide that looping system, but up here would, again, be able to provide kind of more of that equitable balance of openings throughout the development. So we know that the developer is working on looking at the potential and where the most feasible opening can occur. The challenge is, again, kind of the steep topography that we're dealing with on this northeasterly side, which is the reason for these retaining walls in the first place. They do have to kind of manage that and figure out a feasible opening to make that work slope-wise. And then getting more into the discussion around the retaining walls. So like I mentioned, because of the steep grade or steep difference in topography on this northeasterly side, retaining walls are inevitable to try to kind of balance out these lots and yard space. The ones I'm really going to focus on this evening are the one shown in between the rear lots of both the easterly cul-de-sacs and then the one on the northeasterly side of the site, just because they are the most significant of the ones proposed out in this development. So this middle one will be about, it'll range in size as you kind of progress through, but kind of towards its midpoint, it'll be about 23 feet at its tallest point and then kind of taper down on both sides. But again, that'll give you kind of an understanding of what the difference of topography between these two cul-de-sacs are going to be. And then the same can be said on the northeasterly side here to accommodate the stormwater pond and preserve most of this wetland area. They had to put in a significant retaining wall here, which again will be about 25 feet at its tallest point, but then it'll taper down in height as you go more north. So with these pieces, customarily these development-driven retaining walls, from a staff standpoint, we require that they are privately owned and maintained, which they propose to do with these retaining walls. So with that, they will have specific easements over them to indicate or project that these are going to be HOA owned and maintained elements, even though they are in private yard spaces. So the HOA will have maintenance, long-term maintenance over these pieces as the developments age. I also wanted to, well, actually, before I get to that, wanted to mention kind of with this easterly retaining wall, being that it is adjacent to the collector road. And for that reason, we'll have high visibility from kind of pedestrian view or public view. There is significant opportunity to help soften this wall along kind of this inner area between the collector road and the retaining wall. So we did highlight in the report some areas to look at for the landscaping to extend around, kind of show maybe a natural continuation of what's along the collector road edge here into kind of the stormwater pond area. And then other areas that are not encumbered by ponds or the wetland, looking at where they can fill in some layering for landscaping out there to help kind of soften that edge. So here's just a portion of the landscape plan. I just wanted to kind of show the easterly edge as it abuts Savannah Way, since I know in other phases of this development and across the street, the importance of having, you know, a layered vegetative edge here was important, along with some berming where possible. So they are showing that as a part of this development area. On the north side, the berming will be slim to none just because of the adjacent wetland, but they will still carry through the landscaping consistent with the other edges along the collector road. And then the housing product, this is consistent with what was shown in the concept plan. The manor lots have gotten a little bit more refined However, since the concept plan, they have actual plans now. But want to show kind of the difference in the heritage versus the manor versus the cottage lots. So the heritage is their traditional single family product, which has been constructed in other phases. The manor in the upper right-hand corner is, again, that detached single family product, but a little bit smaller in scale. So these will more so, I think all of them have just a 2-stall garage option, again, just to have a more scaled down buying option for people in this development. And then the cottage lots below, again, will be both a side load and front load garage option. And these will be kind of those single level living type products. I think some will have options for bonus rooms or loft space potentially. But again, it's kind of meant to be that more convenient lifestyle for whoever's looking for that. So in conclusion, we are asking you to make 2 motions tonight. So one would be to recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Harvest West Third, and then based on the conditions that are listed in the staff report. And then the other motion is to recommend approval of the rezoning from the open zoning district to PRD 77. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we do have Dave Nash in the audience, who's here on behalf of the developer.
Liz, this is Todd Urbanski. Can you go back to the slide that shows the access to the conservation area?
Yeah.
Right there, yeah. So currently they're looking for 1 access point, is that correct?
Well, currently they have 2 access points proposed.
Okay.
And I've just kind of arrowed out where there's potential for another one.
Gotcha.
So more than
Okay.
likely they're only going to add 1 additional opening.
Okay, just from my perspective, it looks like that eastern furthest one to the east would make the most sense, being that it would kind of add all 3 basically the neighborhood within a neighborhood access to that conservation easement again.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
Liz, this is Commissioner Riley. How about wetland mitigation for the wetlands on the western side of the property? How is that handled within the development?
I might have Dave talk about kind of what they're working on with that, because he's more closely working with our engineers on what they're doing for mitigation measures.
Okay. And then 25-foot retaining wall, that's a structure. That's significant. Is there any other precedence for a retaining wall of that magnitude anywhere else in Chaska in a residential area?
I'm not sure of one of that height. This might very well be the first of its kind.
Yeah, it just throws up red flags for me. I think about, one, what's the construction methodology to it? What's the inspection regime? What's the service life of that wall relative to the the community?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and Dave might be able to provide a little bit more details on kind of longevity and what they see as a maintenance plan, or how often they might have to maintain it. But from our standards, these have to be engineered walls. So they have to be designed to, withstand loads and so forth. So they do require a level of detail with them to make sure that they do withstand the elements.
Okay. I look forward to the answer.
Dave, do you want to address some of Commissioner Riley's questions? So relating to the wetland mitigation, and then if you could speak to some of the retaining wall maintenance as well.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. This is Dave Nash with Align Engineering. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to apologize for Pat Rossi with Tradition Companies. He planned to be on this meeting, but he had a family issue come up, so I'm the only one on the meeting. But so getting into the question, so the wetland mitigation, any wetlands that we're impacting on the site, we will be purchasing wetland credit, banking credits for it. Actually, since we've submitted this, our wetland specialist has submitted to the city application, the wetlands on the west side of the site. We're asking for them to be exempt wetlands because they went back and looked at some of the historical photos of this area, and those areas were not wetlands before the 212 construction went in and the berm. So we think we provide enough evidence for the TEP panel to look at and say those aren't wetlands. Our site works either way, whether they are or aren't wetlands, but and again, any wetlands that we're impacting, we're going to do banking as opposed to try to mitigate on site. Far as the retaining walls, you're 100% right. 25-foot walls are high. I've had a couple projects that had them in the past. This site is just a very difficult site, and clearly we try to minimize walls as much as we can, but that was just what we ended up with in our design. Far as the duration, I can't answer how long it is. As Liz said, there'll be a registered structural engineer that will have to design these and then submit the design to the city for approval. Then once approved, they'll be constructed based on their design. Guarantee a 25-foot wall. There's going to be, whether, I can't tell you right now if it's going to be a boulder wall or a modular block wall, but there'll be a lot of tiebacks associated with it. And then, as Liz said, the HOA will be responsible for the maintenance of that. I've got walls in my development. So far, they haven't failed. They do fail the HOA, then has to deal with it. I've seen walls sit for 40 years. It's, I don't think anyone can tell you the duration. It's part of it is the maintenance that goes on during it. So that's as good an answer as I guess I can give you right now.
This is Commissioner Olson. I've got a couple of questions. One of them is dealing with the Red Cedar Drive, so the eastern cul-de-sac. Are there going to be sidewalks on both sides or just on the side with the houses? So where the water pond is?
Yeah, so there'll be sidewalks on both sides for kind of the cul-de-sac area. There will also be a sidewalk on kind of the, I guess what you would call it, the west side of Red Cedar Drive. Because of the retaining wall up here and only 6 lots down here, there just wasn't a need for this sidewalk to be here. Plus, having it in proximity to the retaining wall is, I think, from both sides, something that we want to avoid is making sure that we're not having pedestrians or people walking along the edge of this wall, even though they'll have kind of the safety fences and measures put in place. There just wasn't really that beneficial need on this side. If we can get an additional opening again on the northerly side here, then it'll kind of reinforce the benefit of this connection on the west side. But that's the plan right now.
But the six houses on the east side will have a sidewalk though?
At this point, our public works and engineering didn't see a need for that, because what it would basically pose is kind of a pedestrian crossing in the middle here. And it usually ends up being more of a safety concern versus an overall benefit of having this sidewalk here. So as of right now, they don't see kind of a safe need for this extension here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this is Dave Nash. Our plans actually do show a sidewalk there because we weren't aware of that at the time, but since then we're in agreement with the city that it doesn't make sense. So our plans will eliminate that sidewalk in the future.
So those six
This
houses
is,
will have no access.
What was that?
So those six houses are going to have to cross the street in the middle to be able to get over to a sidewalk versus coming up to Farm Hills Boulevard to cross. So I'm just, that part doesn't make sense, which is you still have these six houses that have no sidewalk access to at least the feeder entrance on Farm Hills Boulevard. So I have concerns on that piece of it for the sidewalk.
Okay.
But I would say my larger concern, it kind of goes off of Commissioner Riley's, is the retaining wall between, the heritage and the manor section. More so, not necessarily, well, besides the retaining wall construction, but also just the pure height difference between the houses. Meaning that you're going to have the heritage houses towering over the manor lots. And I live in a house that has a 10 or 12 foot hill behind me, and I couldn't imagine a house being built there. And now you're going to say it's like double that, and that's what is going to be on those houses in the middle. It doesn't seem, it doesn't seem even aesthetically pleasing to anybody. So why would, how do you think that that's going to be a good sale job for any of those lots on the manor side of things, knowing that they have this 20-foot wall plus a 2-story house on top of it towering above their house and their property in their backyard?
Yep, and that's a valid comment. And honestly, I mean, Pat Rossi would be kind of a better suit to answer or address kind of that concern of kind of how they foresee it.
Well, if I
From a
can,
marketable standpoint. Go ahead, Dave.
Dave Nash of the Lion. I mean, we've had some discussion with that with Robert Thomas Homes, and they see it the other way. They're rather excited with the views that these houses will have and not being blocked by the houses down below. And then those houses say, the beautiful view on this is going to the north. So they're actually excited at the way it's tiered. Again, we'd prefer not to have that big a wall, but we're stuck with it based on the existing conditions. But they see that as a positive, not a negative.
This is Commissioner Lacey. I'd like to add my voice to Commissioner Rowley's and Obransky's regarding the retaining wall. We live in a development that's probably 18 to 20 years old. We've been here 13 years. And for the 13 years, I've seen the rebuilding of retaining walls that were 6 and 8 feet tall. So a 25-foot wall that ultimately will be the responsibility of the HOA, seems a pretty daunting risk. And, I would really look forward to seeing what the structural engineers propose, to mitigate that potential for collapse or whatever.
This is Commissioner Urbanski. I'll add to that. I like the concept of this plan a lot, but that 25-foot retaining wall there, and I know the HOA will be responsible for it. But at that height, if there ever is a problem with it or it needs to be redone in certain spots or redone completely, that's big equipment going in there. That's heavy equipment to work on a 25-foot tall retaining wall. And granted, the HOA will take care of it, but I'm pretty confident that the homeowners that abut that retaining wall at that time of that construction will not want to have their yards torn up completely, which would, with the heavy equipment that would be necessary to get back there, and probably ripping out landscaping and all that kind of stuff too. So if this somehow comes together, it would be nice to see something in writing that maybe could be put into the HOA documents so that future buyers understand the risks of living along that retaining wall, and what would happen, or what some of the what it would take to rebuild that if there are ever issues with it.
Yeah, Commissioner Seiler here. I'll echo a lot of the points already heard, in the concept plan when that was brought to us a few months ago. One of my comments and concerns was all you see is rooftops from the concept plan. These are really small lots, and from the manor lot point of view, they've gotten even smaller now, the lots, since the concept plan. And so you have small lots with just a few feet in between homes, and now a potential retaining wall taking up some of the, I guess, usable square footage in the backyard on many of these lots. I'm a little disappointed that the lot count remained the same and we've shrunk the lots, where I was actually hoping we could maybe try to eliminate 4 or 5 lots out of the manor section to increase the space of those yards a little bit, to make up for some of the other encumbrances that, the topography and the design of this plan kind of naturally bring.
This is Commissioner Brass here. I have a question too. So how many of the lots are impacted by this retaining wall? I'm looking here. Is it a dozen or? Pretty close.
So about 16
Okay.
between the retaining, or both of the cul-de-sacs here.
And then did I miss it? What beyond the height of the wall and the upkeep of the wall, which I will agree with the other sentiment. I've had so many properties on the commercial side with retaining walls with, just over the years, water damage that just, can annihilate a retaining wall if it's not upkept. It's a constant battle on a 10-foot, 12-foot wall versus 25 feet. Beyond that, what is there? I mean, is there going to be fencing? Like, is there safety measures that have to be put in? That's a pretty big drop.
Yeah, fencing is required for any retaining wall that exceeds 4 feet in height, but they are opting to put fencing for any portion of the wall that exceeds 30 inches. So that's less than 4 feet. So most, if not all, of the retaining wall sections will have fencing on top of it.
And
Top of it. So basically in someone's, if I'm looking at this right, in someone's backyard, correct?
Right. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, it just seemed like an awful long drop. Like, I'm just thinking like children hopping a fence. I mean, it's a 25-foot, it's a 24-foot drop. Is that correct?
Yeah, and between the rear lots there, it's 23 feet at its tallest point. So.
And too, Rob, I mean, I think of it from the standpoint of when I was a kid.
Yeah.
If I had a 24-foot wall that ramped down to nothing out in the backyard, me and all my buddies would be climbing up and down that wall. I mean, that'd be the most entertaining thing to do in the neighborhood. Is that really what we want to be encouraging or setting up in the residential area?
It's frightening. That's a really big drop right in someone's backyard. I mean, I know people live on cliffs and different things. It's just, it's a little bit, it's something to consider for the commission. I don't know how else you fix it. I mean, I get the topography of the land. It's a little bit concerning to me. So I just want to bring that up.
All right. And I assume there has been everything's been looked at to, is there, that there could be some alternative to the, straight drop of, of a retaining wall?
This is Dave Nash again with the Lion. If you're from an engineering standpoint, no, there isn't. We can't put a slope on there. The slope would eat up the whole site. So, I mean, basically the slope, if you go out there now, it's a steep slope. So trying to put homes and streets in, this is the result. There's really no alternative to make up this grade.
Yeah, I'll go on record, folks. Yeah, I think this is bad planning, and I think it's not fair to the homeowners long term, and I think it creates risk for the developer, with exposure to the kids climbing up and down that wall. I understand what you're trying to do with the site and fit in as many lots as possible, but I just don't think this is appropriate.
Yeah, is there a way to maybe try to redo the plan with a lot larger lots below the retaining wall and maybe somehow space out and make that retaining wall not part of actual folks' yards?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem here. I just, you've got, so on the below, their backyards basically have a wall, a 25-foot wall just going straight up.
And it might not go straight up. It might be staggered a little bit. We don't know that yet, but you're right.
a little staggered. I mean, sure. So you got, I get, however it's designed. I mean, there's different variations. And clearly, if a homeowner buys the lot, they know what they're getting into, I suppose. It's open market. If they want to buy those lots, they buy them. I'm on the safety side, the upkeep side. I'm a little bit concerned. Like with Commissioner Riley just said, I'll go on record. I don't think it's the greatest design. I know you're working with topography, but you'd almost have to sell umbrella policies with those lots up top to go along with your purchase. It's concerning to me.
Dave, at what point does the responsibility for the wall transfer to the HOA from the developer?
I'm sorry,
This is Commissioner Lacey. I'm curious, at what point does the responsibility, the liability for the wall pass from the developer to the HOA?
Good question. I don't know the legal aspect of it. Once the HOA is established, I guess technically as soon as the HOA is established with the development, it becomes the HOA's responsibility. Now,
I'm just thinking if there's a little shared skin in the game, then perhaps a lot more attention is given to the engineering and ways to, overbuild to reduce some of the potential for disaster that a 25-foot wall.
Well, keep in mind, so once this wall's built and we have the site and the HOA is created, Robert Thomas Homes / Traditions is going to own these lots until they're sold. So it will be the developer's responsibility until each lot is sold to an individual party.
Oh, I'm sure, but as I said, I've seen walls fail in this development at the 8-year mark, and it's always at complete inconvenience to the people that live in and around those walls. In fact, there's a rebuild going on right now that relegates some people to only be able to enter their homes, through the garage. These are townhomes, but I see it every day. They got blocks stored up in some public space right now, doing work now. So 25 foot wall is quite a lot.
This is Commissioner Brass. I have a further question, I think, for Mr. Nash, is it? Has there been, we're at the preliminary plat. How's the drainage? Is there a risk for, if there's failure of this wall, which we have a 25 foot, 20 foot, 24 foot, whatever the actual soil height is there a risk for, I don't know what the actual term is. It's not a mudslide, but is there a risk for a soil failure where it can collapse into the homes below? What's the drainage? Have you done studies on the water drainage and potential for any kind of collapse?
I haven't done a study for collapse on the wall, but our site has a drainage system shown on the plans. We have drainage picking up in the back side of those homes to pick up the drainage on that back side. We don't have drainage on the back side of the homes on top of the lot because it's only the rear lots themselves that are draining that direction. So there is a drainage system in place. When the retaining wall is designed again by a professional engineer, he will take into account and provide a drainage system behind the top side of the wall to account for that. That'll be part of his drainage design.
And will that drain, do you know, will that drain out through like daylight type, underground pipes that expose themselves throughout the wall and drain down to the lots below? Or how is it graded? Are the homes below going to have water in their backyard where the wall meets their backyard?
Being the designer.
You follow what I'm saying? I'm looking for
I would assume that when he does this design, he'll see these catch basins we put in the backyards and connect his drain tile to those catch basins so it drains right into the storm system.
Yeah, drain tile is what I was looking for. I apologize. I just kind of lost. I couldn't think of it for a sec there.
Yep.
Because you see the walls and they have the tubes, the drainage tubes in the middle of the walls that weep out the water. And, when you don't have a backyard, if it's like a commercial property or somewhere alongside of a highway, it just kind of drains out and goes to the impervious surface, collects in a catch basin and goes down to the gutter or to the sewer. Here you got a yard. So, I'm just imagining on top of a 20, you got a swampy section in the very back of your yard down below where that meets the wall there. That's another concern, I guess.
Well,
what's the scope of the drain tile plan for all these homes? Are they all going to have drain tile going from the wall to
the road,
essentially the street? We talked about this a little bit at concept where there's, the Chaska famous red clay soils. A lot of people have drainage problems in, neighborhoods that don't quite have the topography as this. It's everywhere. It's prevalent.
I'm sorry, it was Dan, right?
Dave Nash.
Dave. Sorry, Dave.
That's all right. I've been called worse.
Commissioner, yeah, me too. Commissioner Dalkey here. I'm wondering, it sounds like we've got a lot of, consternation about this particular part of the project. And I'm wondering if we could get you guys to work on this particular area and come back to us again with more of a, maintenance plan and a, how is it going to drain? We've pretty much asked, kind of the same questions. And so there's a lot of concern here. And I'm just wondering if that wouldn't be would satisfy us and, give you guys a better chance of getting this put through. Does that
Sorry.
make sense, guys?
Yes,
I
this,
would,
this is
This is
Commissioner Riley.
Chairman Urbanski. I would agree with that. I'd have a real hard time voting to move this forward right now with this particular issue that we're dealing with here. And I would add to that, Chairman Dalkey, that they also evaluate that to see if there's any way to make a change to the development to not necessarily eliminate that wall, but to make it a smaller structure than what I'll start the term here as Mount Chaska at this point.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Brass, and I would also kind of second what the chair says. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with the size of this wall. I'd love to see I know you say, well, the engineer's going to design it. I'd love to see the engineers design ahead of time. I'd like to see the drain tile design, understand what's the percentage chance of a failure of the wall. Are we going to have a soil collapse onto the homes below? I mean, I know it's unlikely, but those things do happen, and we do have bad drainage in Chaska with clay. I think there's a lot of concern here, and so I too, like Commissioner Urbanski, I don't feel. I mean, we'll vote on it here in a little bit, but I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable as it sits right now. So that's my 2 cents.
And I'm also I would also add to what we've been talking about, to see the fencing that is going to run along, maybe the fencing doesn't have to be the same the whole length of the thing, when you're down to the real low parts, but I'd like to see what the fencing is going to look like, at the 25-foot part of the wall.
Absolutely, Delkia. That was my initial concern, was the safety of children. I mean, we're in a big neighborhood, and it's a pretty big drop. Again, every homeowner has the right to buy whatever property they want, and they know what they're getting into, but it's a large drop.
And I think that fencing, there needs to be protection measures from people climbing the wall. We'd like to see the design of the wall to know that is not, it doesn't become a jungle gym. You talk about modular block walls. Well, those are climbable. So tell us what exactly this wall is going to be, so it's not climbable.
Exactly, Commissioner Riley.
Okay, I guess my next question is, Kevin or Liz, well, first of all, do we have any other questions that we need to address besides the wall?
Just offhand, what's the actual feet between the manor homes right now as currently designed? From like one wall of one house to the wall of the next house?
Well, they have 5-foot side yard setbacks, so it
No.
could.
The backyard to backyard, from the house to house, block to block,
Oh,
60 feet
yeah,
generally.
It'd be a minimum of
60
60.
to 65.
It 60 plus to 60, probably to 75 or something. It looks like it varies a little bit based on how the cul-de-sacs wiggle. The minimum would be 60 because there's a 30-foot rear yard setback to the house. So if you had that on both sides and they were at the minimum size allowed, you'd be at 60. So it's probably more than that, but that gives you a ballpark.
Could we make a motion to table this until next month, until we can have more information on what this is all going to look like as far as the wall goes? And if so, I'll make that motion.
We still need to open and close the public hearing.
Yeah, right.
Before we make any motion to.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if there was any other, have we hit the points as the commission that we want to hit right now before we go to the public hearing and then go to any kind of motion?
Yeah, the only question I would have probably for the commission, and then probably also for the applicant. This seems like a easterly heavy issue. Dave, from your perspective, I don't know your timing on construction and stuff. Does it make sense to bifurcate it and advance the west side because it can kind of really operate on its own? Or from how you're doing stuff, does that matter? Or is that, I mean, for me, it sounds like the planning commission wants to table the east side for more consideration by you guys and discussion. Seems like generally from what I'm hearing, I could be wrong. But the westerly side seems like people are generally acceptable to it. From your side, does it make sense to advance that part from a construction side, or does it just make sense to wait on the whole thing?
From a development, we're going to do the whole thing at one time. We're not going to. At one time, we were thinking of breaking up the west side, but this is all going to be. In fact, we've talked about it. It's all going to be one phase. We're not.
Okay. I just wanted you to have that opportunity to express, if there's issues there, because again, what I'm hearing is really easterly focused issues and not really the westerly side.
I have one other question. I just have one other, is more of a basic question. We talked about the connecting of the east and west side through the preserve area. Is that just something via a paved path, a gravel path? Is it no path? Because I read it described about having, the loop side of things. Is the loop literally just the connecting of the two, of the west cul-de-sac and the potentially of the east cul-de-sac?
So the way we have it framed out is it would be a paved path. So have like a very definitive path and looping system between kind of the overall development.
And then HOA would maintain?
No, the city would maintain what's in the basically the openings and what's in the conservation area, because those will be deeded to the city. Yep.
Okay.
So not only will the city will be building that portion, we're building the trails down to the edge of the lots, but then the city will be building the trails within the conservation area.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
We're paying for it fully, yes. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. I think I'm going to open the public hearing at 8:02. Mr. Wright, do we have anyone besides the commission and our developer?
Nope, it is just you in the meeting. So I'm gonna guess that means there are no public comments.
Very good. At that being the case, I'm going to close the public hearing at, we'll call it 8:03. And I don't know if we need more discussion or if we want to bring a motion forward to send the developer, back to do a little more homework for us.
I'll make that motion again, that we table this until we can have more information regarding the extent of that retaining wall, the safety of that retaining wall, the maintenance of that retaining wall, and possibly even a reconfiguration of that retaining wall.
I'll second.
Now, and I would like to let the developer know that in that I think we also want to see what your ideas and or plan is for fencing as well.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Brass. Just a couple of highlights: fencing, drain tile plan, engineering plan, construction of the retaining wall. If it's block, how's that going to be? I think those are the 4 highlights. And is there any kind of statistical analysis you could provide in terms of failure of the wall or the land, the dirt under, behind the wall, blowing out into the homes below, kind of like you'd see like on a mudslide or whatever like that. Like, is it a 20-year anomaly, a 100-year anomaly, that kind of deal. So those are kind of the fine, kind of the highlights.
Yeah, not being a retaining wall expert, also maybe just if there is maintenance or some of it has to be rebuilt, like what the impact to the homes are. Is it like, hey, we're only going to be 10 feet into your lot as we build this, or we're going to be trampling over everything because we got to bring in cranes and whatnot.
And I'd like to see the construction inspection regime of who's responsible and what they're doing through the course of building this wall, so that we ensure the residents get a product that will perform as the engineer designs.
So Dave, I think it's safe to say we just want to know all aspects of the design and building of this wall and fence. Kind of put it into one sentence.
No, I understand that. I mean, typically I can tell you that this is stuff required at the point of final plat, but I understand why you're asking for it. I'll have to get back with traditions. We'll have to find out who's going to do the retaining wall design and get going on that. As far as the inspection, I don't have an answer. I think I would ask for the city. I assume the city would have some inspection on the wall since it's a structural wall, but I don't know.
We would probably make you hire special inspectors. It's a unique structure. Putting a building inspector out there is probably not the correct answer. Whenever we get into special, we can talk about that offline.
Okay, that's fine.
And Dave, on your comment on, final, this maybe being part of the final, I would say that the way we approach these things, and any other commissioner can hop in, that we want to see the detail of, especially outstanding parts of projects, before we move beyond preliminary, so that it is, when we see it and final, there isn't any surprises.
Yeah, and this is Commissioner Brass. I just wanted to also add to that, like, if this was just a 10-foot wall, a little more standard, where it's like, hey, that can come up at final plat, here's the engineering specs, kind of like, you're running the mill wall. But it's such a large wall in the middle of your development, separating houses with safety issues. And in addition, I just coincidentally, I've got a wall on a commercial property I work on up north that is nowhere near this size, and it's like $400,000 to fix this thing. It's failing, and luckily it's, we got the commercial owner they got the wherewithal. But if this wall needed $600,000 worth of repairs, like, can the HOA, if it's assigned over to that point, is that feasible? Like, how much are the homeowners going to have to come out of pocket? How many homes are we talking underneath this HOA? I mean, would that be amortized over the useful life of the wall and assessed, and who's going to pay for that? I mean, because if it goes back to the HOA, there's no way there's that much money in the kitty. I mean, there's just some concerns there as well. So that's another point just wanted to bring up.
Well, and this is Dave Nash again, I can kind of answer that as personal experience. The development I live, we have 105 lots. We have, as some others in Chaska, we have an irrigation system that comes out of our ponds for the entire site. Our development was built in 2006, 2007. So we're getting on, 15 years old. Our ponds now need to be dredged out. And in Medina, that falls on the development. So yes, our HOA, we had to do a special assessment. We have about I haven't seen the final bill, but it's about a $300,000 project where we have to dewater our ponds, muck out this material, haul it off. and then put the water back in. And that's the price of our development, is we all got hit up with special assessments to pay for that. So
Yeah.
that's what would happen to this wall too, if there was required maintenance on the wall.
Yep. Understood.
But so I do agree, and I'm sure it would be done, but there would be, when we bought our lot, we had to sign the HOA documents, and there's pretty clear in there what the requirements are. And we provide easements for not only the irrigation system, but the ponding. So, but
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea that you say, and happens in a lot of developments, that we have to specifically notify the home buyers of that risk.
Yeah. Again, we're getting far ahead here, and I apologize. I'm not trying to, keep slamming the hammer down here. I just, there's only so many lots that this actually wall affects. However, all the homes in the HOA would be affected financially. So I feel like there would be this, and I'm not an attorney, but of course, but there should be like ideally a disclosure. It's like, hey, in the event, there could be a need that this wall maintenance could be spendy if something were to happen. And if there people going into buying this lot doesn't turn around and get hit with a $6,000, per lot assessment that they got to come out of pocket for. It's not most families, just have that, hanging around. So.
Yeah, well, and that's how it's sold to, Commissioner Brass. I've, with these HOAs with a lot of the residential neighborhoods, when you go into the model and you look at the home, the HOA's just described it up. It's nothing, it's $30 every quarter. It's, it's nothing where, it is responsibility of the homeowner to know everything, but it's not always presented that way.
Right. I just want to make sure that's fully disclosed too, because it's a very spendy thing to fix sometimes.
Well, I think your point is well taken. And we know that if it's something that's constructed by man, it's going to have to be replaced. I mean, it's not a question of if, it's really a question of when, and how does it relate to the lifespan of the house? And it's probably going to be less than that. I mean, it'd be a good guess. And so it is something that from an eventuality perspective, it's good to think about and good to go in, not just from a homeowner's perspective, but from a city perspective with eyes wide open in terms of the project. And I think the questions that you're asking are valid and good things to explore and kind of weed out at this preliminary stage before all the entitlements are granted.
Right, because if the homeowners, if it's like, oh, it's $500,000, the city's gonna be getting a call. They're gonna be saying like, how are you gonna help us here? Like the city should have, said something. I mean, it's gonna come back to the city.
You approved it.
Totally. So it's another issue. I just want, like, we should have full disclosure on sale documents. I mean, I'm not an attorney. We can't force that in the commission. I just talking out loud.
Well, I can tell you in the city of Medina, it went on deaf ears. City said, that's your problem. Because we had some neighbors that did that. So.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I want
to make a vote.
I would like to see just the different alternatives, because obviously this is the first one with the large retaining wall in the backyards. But what was the other alternative of being able to change the layout so that it isn't an issue, or it isn't as large of an issue between backyards? So that's ultimately, I'm surprised it got plotted this way, knowing that it had such a large retaining wall in the backyard. So I'm just shocked that it came this far with this kind of design.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else? Otherwise, let's bring the motion to a vote. Okay.
You're tabling this. Oh, excuse me. I'm just trying to clarify. And you would be based on what you've said, and then you're tabling it to the January meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. January.
Or until whenever they can come back, whenever they're comfortable coming back, I guess.
Let's do it to a date certain. Do you know the date of the planning commission, Liz?
Yeah, it's January 13th.
Okay.
For the next one.
And if they need more time, they can ask for it, but we can keep it on the agenda that way.
All right, can we add that to? I'm not sure. I'm not
Well,
sure. Is somebody writing this down?
I'll make
I'll
a
amend
motion.
my motion to
Okay.
move it to the January 13th Planning Commission meeting. And I think Dave probably understands, our concerns with it and some of the questions that we want answered at the next meeting or more insight on.
I'll second that motion. Commissioner Brass.
All right. Unless there's any further input, I'd like to have Liz call the vote.
Commissioner Brass,
Aye.
Lacey,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dalkey.
Aye. So I'm under the assumption that we don't need to vote on the rezoning either
No.
until this is done. It wouldn't make sense, right?
No,
No.
yeah,
We would think that the whole action item is tabled until that time.
right.
Okay, very good. All right, thanks, Dave, for your input tonight. And it was helpful to us to open our eyes a little more on the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to our next order of business is just to receive in the meeting minutes from the October 5th, 19th, November 2nd, November 16th City Council meeting minutes, and to receive in the September 15th Park Board meeting minutes. So that having been read in, there is nothing else on the agenda. Do we have any comments from anyone on the commission or staff that they'd like to make before we adjourn?
I would like to take the time, since we met last, Chaska lost a great ambassador and employee, Karen L. Campbell, who worked for Parks and Rec. And I'd just like to acknowledge the value that Karen brought to this community, the Fishing with Friends, Chaska Cubs, the Bountiful Basket, and to the city itself. And she's going to be missed, and she was a great asset.
Well said. I agree totally. Very good. Anyone else? Kevin or Liz?
Nothing.
Just before we go, I'd just like to thank Liz for all your hard work on your presentation here and the due diligence that you obviously implemented. Looking forward to when this comes back and they sort through that wall a little bit, but otherwise, yeah, I liked a lot of what I saw. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Totally agree again. Okay.
Commissioner
anyone else?
Urbanski, I've got one question on the Big Woods Boulevard project that I know they've still got a little bit of wrap up to do next spring. They've got kind of a retaining wall. We've talked about that a little bit tonight. That's going to have fencing eventually go up on top of it. Is there a timeline for that, or is that something that's going to get done next spring? Do we know on that?
I do not know, but I can find out from the city engineer. I assume, I don't know what the hangup is. I know steel is really difficult right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's the issue. Seems like we've been able to finish everything else. So I'm assuming it's not just a construction issue, that there must be some material hang up, but I'm not certain.
Yeah, because the asphalt path runs right along there, and it's 6 to 8 foot drop off there in spots.
Right.
So,
Right.
right.
I mean,
Okay.
could they put a temporary, just put some posts up with some sort of, I don't know, wire or something, just some sort of like a ribbon even?
I don't know. I'd have to ask the engineer. I really don't know.
Yellow ribbon, just so just to signify the drop. Yeah.
They do currently have a snow fence up there, so
There is a
did they?
snow fence up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it gets knocked over in the wind from time to time, and it's just right. It's right on the path, so it's kind of one of those spots where you take notice.
There's no snow though, so.
That's because it's doing its job.
Yeah, right.
Anyone else? Okay, all I've got is I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners and the two Kevins and Liz for all of your hard work. This was a odd to say the least year, and but I think we did our job as well as we could do it, and you guys are. It's a very I think it's a very learned or well-rounded commission. I kind of followed the lead of Commissioner Hung before he left, that let everybody else talk first and then do your comments last. And by the time I get to it, I don't have any comments because you guys have covered everything, which is fine with me. So I just want to thank everybody for that. And then beyond that, wish everybody a happy holiday, and hopefully we'll get vaccinated someday and we'll be able to meet in the same room.
That would be wonderful. Happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
All right, I guess then we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
I'll
Commissioner
second.
Wilson and Commissioner Brass. Liz, do we need a roll for adjourning?
Might as well.
Okay.
Commissioner Brass,
Aye.
Lacey,
Aye.
Seiler,
Aye.
Urbanski,
All right.
Olson,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
and Chairperson Dalkey.
I'll make it unanimous. Aye as well.